What'd you do for your birthday, Barry?
I was invited over to a friend's house for leg of lamb dinner.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
Leg. I've had the rack. I've had the chops. I've had kebabs. I'm not sure I've had the whole leg.
Yeah, it's a big hunk. What's a thigh? So yeah, it's a big, and you can get it either with the bone or without the bone. Usually it's with the bone, but this year there was a different supply at the store, so this was chunks with just the boneless chunks.
Anyway, I announced I'm going to take a hiatus for the next 4 weeks of Saturdays.
Just Saturdays, not Sundays?
Yeah, I'm still going to be curious about Sundays because Sundays I try and provide a little bit more structure with initial questions and stuff like that. But I got to tell you, to be honest, yesterday I was a bit frustrated because it seemed difficult for us to actually stay on topic with almost anything. And I tried a couple of times, and it just seemed like we were riffing, and I didn't know where the conversation was going yesterday.
Well, Joshua and I were on a common topic between the two of us.
Yes, I got that. And so long as you guys are enjoying it, that's fine, But
But there's nobody else present.
Well, I tried focusing before I left.
Oh.
I was trying to do.
Yeah, well, I don't, maybe you weren't interested in what Josh and I got interested in. And
well, I want to verify that there was a topic. And that's why I, did confirm, hey, we're going from this topic to that topic, what topic are we talking about? And I didn't get a clear answer yesterday. So apologize if it seemed abrupt, but I think that Saturdays seem to take more of a jump from topic to topic to topic.
Saturday's a coffee clutch.
Yeah. And that's why it's completely okay. I say, if you really want to do the open thing on Saturday, that's fine. But that's why with Sundays, I want to be a bit more directed and focused. Personally. Okay. Now, yesterday also, we had brought up, or I think Josh had brought up, the whole idea of Bombia Dialog again. I think Bombia Dialog, we've not ever practiced. We have had, almost no contemplative pauses after people speak. It's like we just immediately riff onto the next topic. And that's the easiest of the Bohmian guidelines to see that we don't do.
There's one topic that I keep coming back to, and it's the concept of high functioning governance models for community governance, whether the community—
I like that one.
Whether it's just 3 people or whether it's the whole planet, any scale. Our civilization has never really developed a suitable high functioning governance model except in relatively small niche communities, but never at a scale, say, the size of a large town or a county or a state or a country, or certainly not a planet. It's an underdeveloped topic, and I bring it up from time to time, and people say this is an interesting topic, but then people don't seem to ever dive into it. They simply say, "Oh, that's an interesting topic," and then go on and talk about something less profound.
If I may jump in, remember there's a topic that we talk about, which is, I think we talk about 100 theoretical physicists. Was
100 what?
Theoretical physicists.
Theoretical physicists?
Yeah, they was talking a lot, sort of like playing chess instead of war, right? Okay. Unless there's a the practical physicists that carry out an experiment which takes 100 years, 50 years or whatever to prove that, to allow us to have a feedback loop to come back.
The Solvay conferences were close to 100 world-class physicists.
I understand, but my point to you is that you can play chess all you want. You be the best chess player, but I will not trust you with a war, right?
Oh yeah, I would agree that although chess is considered a war game, it's not a really good model of
same thing with theoretical physicists, same thing with collaboration, same thing with all the things that we talk about. Unless there's a way for us to verify that we just a lot of hot air going on. I mean, yes, we're getting better hot air than the other people that are having hot air, but regardless, we're still doing hot air.
Michio Kaku is the master of hot air. Sabina Hassenfelder is the master of getting down to the nitty gritty.
That's right. So what I'm encouraging people to do is that we are only interested to talk about things that we can verify and be practical in our lives because, like,
Yeah.
unless we have a war that we can even use a knife and a fork to fight, it's better than chess all day long and all life long. So again, remember it requires two components on a good discussion: a compelling reason, because you need a compelling reason for you to take your time from other things that you could be done to this event that you want to enjoy. So compelling reason is number one, and the compelling reason also affect your life. And so when you have a lot of bandwidth, when you're boring, you're trying to get rid of the boring. But when you're busy, guess what? You don't have time for that. So again, the topics thing is, believe me, I have a lot of discussion. So
you really have to get down often to the quantitative nitty gritty. And the example that came up yesterday is that the Japanese space agency, JAXA, landed a soft lander on the moon. It landed softly just fine, but then it didn't have the solar power. There was something wrong with the solar power. And we knew that it landed on a slope. And the question was, how steep was the slope? And what difference does it make if it's a shallow slope or a very steep slope? Does it topple over or does it sit at a canted angle? And how does that, explain the loss of sunlight on the solar panel? And the three people on the panel who worked for JAXA talked around the issue in platitudes and vagueness, and they never got down to the nitty gritty. What was the angle of the slope and what was the attitude? Did it land at an angle? Did it tip over? Did it land upright on a slope? And how does that affect the angle of the sunlight on the solar? The one thing I wanted to find out was the quantitative information about the slope and the angles and all that stuff. And you would think they would know that because the spacecraft landing had to know which direction is the vertical.
perfect, Barry. I'm so glad you come up with this example because I'm going to take it one step further. How could you verify a good chess player also is a good warrior? How do you do that?
I wouldn't know how to do that.
We can ask for things that we cannot get, like for example, the slope of the ankle. Well, we'll never get that. The reason they won't give it to you because they're for some strategic reason, I don't care. But there's something we cannot get, and we have to accept that. What makes a good chess player also a good warrior? Tell me, do you know? My answer is that look, a good chess player, that if you think you want to be a good warrior, is that you will predict the outcome of the war before it happened. So what I encourage is the group is that, well, guess what? We can have all the hot air discussion we want, but go ahead and predict something and say, okay, I'm going to put my stake on it. I'm going to bet that this is going to work. Like we remember we betting before. So if you bet that the outcome of the war and you are accurate about it, 10 out of 10, guess what? I don't care. You've never been to a war, but you're a damn good predictor, which is one step closer than hot air discussion.
But chess is a rules-based game, and mathematically speaking, rules-based systems are unpredictable because an infinitesimally tiny perturbation, a quantum perturbation in which way you go on a move, that's both of which are legal, can dramatically change the outcome. And you can't predict which of two seemingly superficially interchangeable options turns out to be not non-trivial. You can't see that in advance.
Sam, go for it.
Well, I'm still seeing that we still are not cognizant, or at least choose not to apply Bombia Dialog. Now, I had thought that at one point we had wanted to do so. And I appreciate your point about being, practical in the sense of, predicting and being correct, and then, having that verification loop. If I may, I'd like to recite the Bohmian principles again and see if we really want to try them or not. Okay, so I'm seeing these 8 principles. Okay, suspend assumptions and judgments, approach the conversation with an open mind, setting aside preconceived notions and judgments. That's number 1. Number 2, listen deeply, pay close attention to the speaker, aiming to understand their perspective and feelings. Number 3, reflect and paraphrase. Repeat back what you've understood using your own words to confirm your interpretation and encourage clarification if needed. Number 4, share your perspective. Express your thoughts, feelings, and experience related to the topic, being open and honest. Number 5, encourage exploration. Invite the other person to ask questions or share their thoughts and feelings about what you've shared. Number 6, seek understanding. Aim for mutual understanding rather than conflict or resolution. Emphasize common ground and appreciate differences. Number 7, be present and mindful. Stay focused on the conversation, avoiding distractions. Distractions, I think, also are, what take us away from the focus. Respect the space and time for dialogue. And then lastly, number 8, be patient and open. Allow the conversation to unfold naturally without trying to control the outcome. Now, that's one representation of 8 when I ask chat all. I believe there's been others which have been restated where the patience thing says, hey, let there be some pause between contributions. I didn't see it in that list, but I think, we could choose whether or not to actually practice it. So I think that's the one that I think, if you take a look at all 8, I actually feel that we can be more contemplative and more understanding and more leaning into, as opposed to just bing, 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 always responding to what was actually just said. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. I would rather hear more reflection and a pace which says we've been internalizing, and that's what I'm curious about. Over.
So what I write is that any one comment cannot reasonably meet all 8 criteria simultaneously.
Why
but
not?
any one comment ought to meet at least one criteria reasonably. So my question is, how would you assert, or how would you demonstrate that none of the criteria were met by the conversation that we had about the JAXA landing, understanding what went haywire?
Well, my question at the time that I just departed was a question about what was the topic? What is it we're trying to talk about? And
Understanding what's going on. Getting to the ground truth.
see, I couldn't even ask my question. I couldn't even answer your question before you just interrupted me, Barry.
I just gave you the answer. Getting to the ground truth. Yeah, what's the objective? Answer, getting to the ground truth. You don't have to elaborate. That's the question. What was the objective? Getting to the ground truth. Done. Next question. Not elaborate. Next question.
Okay, so I hear no real curiosity about why I asked the question. You're interested in answering clearly from your perspective, but you're not leaning into why I'm asking this question. That's what
you want to know my answer. Yes, because you want to know my answer.
But if you look in terms of these Bombian principles I just recited, there seems to be at least, let me go back to the ones where I would say, number 4, avoid interrupting. That was one of these lists. Yeah, it's a combination of reflect and paraphrase, listen deeply, suspend assumptions and judgments, encourage exploration, share your perspective, seek understanding, be present and mindful, be patient and open.
So I thought that the conversation addressed at least 2 or 3, if not half of those objectives. Not all of them. Some of them were not addressed in any one comment. Some reason, but at least one or a few of them should be relevant, applicable to the response. And I thought what they were.
Okay, it could be just me. I will fully admit it could be just me. I might be a little bit too sensitive, okay? But I didn't feel that there was enough real curiosity about why I was asking that question.
When you talk to someone that you know really well, and so many lengthy discussion with them, I hope you know them enough that curiosity is just a given. You know, I know exactly how you think. This is how you work. That's how your brain think. So there's a lot of assumption that goes on. We skip, right? So I would challenge that if we go back and watch this video for the last 20 minutes or whatever we are on, 15 minutes, and see when I answer your question, did I pay attention to all the things that was fulfill requirement, or did I, you know, a master doesn't need to go through all the little step in order to get to the whatever it is, because we do it. How much do I understand you? How much do I want? I know you want. What's the critical thing? So we make that decision. Bombia Dialog is basically for people that met for the first time, or maybe only initial, just new to each other, and talk about very scientific discussion. So keeping track of, make sure you understand every single thought before you proceed to the next one is really, really important. But in our discussion here, we don't have the conditions that you know that require that bill. So I agree with Barry that as long as out of 10 you meet 5 or more, I would say you get an A, you know, because it's really hard to do all that. You know, if you put that in, put that piece of paper in front of me and make sure that I follow that every time, I'll get boring with that because people don't like rules. Remember, we'll find a way to get around the rules. So as long as we meet majority of the criteria, I think we are making huge progress already. And I think I'm proud of the last 15 minutes discussion we have. I think we're getting somewhere, we're making progress. You can feel that we are getting clearer in terms of what we're discussing about. And that's really important. Bombia Dialog is a structure, but you know, when you have asked some masters to go to, like the chess player, to go through some structure because this is a winning structure, you must follow it, otherwise you lose. Believe me, they'll throw that structure out the window so fast. So have some way to prove that you truly understand somebody saying by repeating what they say, paraphrasing, or answer the question in such a way that, like we did that in Mastermind, Sam, if you remember that, so that we say, I will give you a 10, what the answer you give me, or I give you a 2, or I give you a 0, what the answer you just give me. So that feedback, you say, it also belongs to the people that list accepting the feedback or not. Say, well, I'm so glad you say this, blah, 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 Mr. Joe. And that, you know, I'll give you a 10 for, I think you truly understand my question without me paraphrasing it. Again, there are so many ways to accomplish the same consequences, result. It's not easy. That's why I said to you before, and you know, Bombing Dialog is tough. But as long as you bring it up every time we start a meeting, I promise you that we are closer to implementing it, whether silently or whether bloody hell.
See, the non-interrupting is if somebody's rambling at length and you've heard the question and they're reiterating and paraphrasing and riffing on it, you know, multiple times. And is it imperative that you must let them ramble indefinitely and never stop them from rambling when you've already formulated the answer to the fundamental question that's being presented, you know, multiple flavors? And my feeling is, once I got the question, I don't need to have it, you know, restated 17 times before I can get around to answering it.
So at the time that I pointed out that you did interrupt me, was I rambling? Had I got
I thought you had clearly stated the question and then were continuing to restate it or riff on it beyond what was required for me to capture the fundamental question. You know, so
Again,
like
it's in the recording. Again, I want to remind you, it's in the recording. Go back and watch it and see if you agree with that. Again, it's not that.
I once had a history teacher who would give an oral quiz, and he would ask a question, and then he would append subpart A, subpart B, and he keep adding subparts to where he had 17 questions all packed into one, and you couldn't possibly answer them because he had asked multiple questions in one opportunity to ask one question that you could write down one answer. And I'll tell you, that annoyed me. ask a question that you can ask in one sentence or two and can be answered in one sentence or two. Then take on the next adjacent question, but don't ask a whole sequence of questions or riff on them, indefinitely, because my eyes glaze over.
I can see that as a matter of personal preference. I can also see that if a point is multifaceted and has multiple different implications, if I ask one implication and then immediately allow other people to follow that one implication, then all these other n-1 implications get lost.
You don't have to
So
get lost.
if I then say, okay, there's 5 implications to what you just said, and if I say, here are all the 5, then at least I've got that on the record. Now, if we don't want to actually delve into that topic, and I can just say, well, let me just give one implication and let's see where the conversation goes, and then maybe next week we can deal with the other 4. That's okay as well, as long as we understand that's what's happening. But the reason I look at something you say in total and give my 3 or 4 or 5 implications of it, and you think that perhaps that's rambling, that is my attempt to at least fully respond to your point, as opposed to giving you 5 things to respond to. Over.
I'm so happy and grateful that you just say that. That reminds me of something that I want to bring it up at this point that's really important. If you want to write it down, please do so. Verbal,
Yeah, oral.
communication create dependency.
Yeah.
Sucks. Verbal, I call it verbal communication create dependency, because I have to keep going back to the person that give me the verbal instruction or question. So if you want to be focused on this and take the Bombia Dialog to the next level, I invite you to share screen and have your topic in black and white.
Yes.
Take responsibility of the outcome. Don't say that, we hijack the Bombia Dialog method or whatever that is.
Yeah, I fully agree with having different modes of interaction, visual as well as verbal.
But I'm going to put the responsibility on the person that wanted the result so bad that they're yelling, screaming, bloody hell. So like, hey, come on, you need to do something before we can do something. So write down 3 sentences, what important, and put them in black and white, put it on the screen, and we can talk all day about that subject. And we don't get deviated, we don't get subtract,
I'll give you an example. You recited a list of 8 criteria. I haven't memorized them. If they were written down, I could go back and scan them, but they weren't written down, they were oral. And within milliseconds, they're gone because I don't have a tape recorder up here. Sorry, I don't have a tape recorder.
Because none of them is life-threatening or compelling to you, so you remember. But I bet if you say something that's really important to you and life-threatening to you, you will remember.
I'll remember one.
This is what I say about compelling reason.
Yeah. But this is one reason that I'm not a big fan of Zoom calls, because it's oral. And I suck at capturing oral information and retaining it and processing it. It runs past me faster than I can process it.
That's why we have transcript. Remember your transcript going on the side.
Oh, right. I forgot to turn that on. See, got to find Jesus. How many different things? Where's the transcript?
I do have that on the side, so I can go back and see and scroll and find it.
Yeah.
Because I really rely on verbal communication.
Oh Christ! It's in 2-point font. How do I make it bigger? It's too small for me to read. Is there a setting to make it big enough to read?
That's because your screen is using high resolution mode.
Well, it's an iMac. It's just so it is what it is.
I wonder what happened.
How do I make it big enough I can actually read the font?
Okay, ask ChatGPT or Buzz.
Let's see. Maybe if I go to settings. This happens at Toastmasters too. I can't find the setting to make the chat font big enough you actually see it.
Zoom
Yeah, it's in the middle of a meeting though.
transcript.
I don't know. I'm sure it's in there someplace, but it would take me in probably half an hour to find it.
Once. Okay, Zoom transcript. One size.
Now, I'll say I did ask multiple GPTs. This was the first that came up. This is maybe not the best summarized list of Bohmian criteria, but at least this is the one that I read from.
Yeah, nice and clean. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
Now,
again, it will go through the chat, and if the chat get pushed away, then you won't see it. Okay, so
agreed.
but that's a good place to start. You know, bullet points.
Yeah. But see, listen deeply. I'm not a big fan of listening to oral presentations because I can't listen deeply. It's way too much information in too short amount of time in the wrong medium. If I had the transcript, I could read the transcript at whatever pace I need to read it to see what the sentences are saying. Listen deeply is unrealistic for me. Maybe not. Maybe there are people who are good at that, but not me. And I certainly couldn't paraphrase a long rant. I would paraphrase one or two points that stood out, and the rest of it I just let it go by.
I disagree with you. I think you listen deeply. It's just a different deeply than the way that you do deeply. You focus on facts, you focus on objective, you focus on all the logic that go behind it. You are a system thinker, deeply definition. Deeply we talk about is like you acknowledge the feelings, you acknowledge all
I'm looking for the ground truth. If we're getting to the ground truth, I'm going to highlight that we're making progress in illuminating and revealing the ground truth. The rest of it, which is sort of wandering around in the wilderness, which isn't the ground truth, I tend to let that go by.
See, that's what I'm saying for you.
Unless it's revealing a misconception. If the rambling includes a misconception that's crucial, I'll focus on that. If the rambling includes an insight, I'll focus on that. If the rambling is say, oh, squirrel, I'll let that go by. It's not important.
If I can use so you want to go for it, so go for it.
Please do. No,
I'm still going to use a metaphor to see if I can get Barry to have a discussion with me about the subject about deeply. So for me, think of it like a camera focus lens, right? So if I would, for you, it's like I want to see the picture. Show me the picture. Show me the object. Okay, so I want to see that, and once I know what to do with it. So for the deeply that other people do is like my focus length is terrible. I have no idea what I'm doing. All I see is a lot of fuzzy pictures. So I'm discussing all the fuzzy picture pixel to you. And hopefully by the time you finish listening to all my pixels, gray area, black and white, whatever I can give you, I'll give you everything I can. I'm doing my very best to give you that picture out of the fuzzy picture that I got because I'm not capable of focusing because my lens is not adjustable like yours. Okay. That's how deeply we talk about have patience and be able to ask question, pace and lead to the next thing that you can tell me. So, okay, what do you see the pixel to the right of this pixel that you just described? Something along the same line. I'm complete.
I'm trying to move the transcript to a different window to see if I can make it bigger, but it doesn't.
I give you the link on that. If you see my link on the chat, that's an instruction for
making the transcript bigger.
Yeah.
okay.
I didn't try it. I don't know whether it worked or not, but it was the answer from Zoom website themselves.
So I'll reveal why I feel some degree of discomfort with the style of conversation that I was in yesterday. If I ask a question that appears simple and I get an immediate answer, I would like to actually ask it in such a way that it comes with the following meta question. In other words, why would someone ask an apparently trivial question? What is behind that trivial question? What is the person really trying to get to? And what is cut off if the answer is quick? In other words, a quick answer is not explorative. It's not explorational, whatever the word is, okay? But if you can say, okay, so why is Sam asking why the sky is blue? Well, it's blue because blah, blah, blah. Frequency is blah, 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 okay? Yeah, with certain conversations, that is the ground truth. But if I'm asking, are we following the Bombia dialogues? There is a set of implied questions that go along with that. And if the answer is just boom, it's here. Okay, we don't do it, or we do it, or do this or that, then it's like, okay, so there doesn't seem to be a curiosity about why I asked that question. And that's what I feel is unfortunate. That to me is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a person who's really interested in that explorative approach. See, none of us are here in a project that has a project plan, that has deliverables with milestones and done criteria, blah, blah. We're not here doing that we haven't defined that, okay? We're here trying to figure out how to think differently, in my view, because I've stated this as my objective, okay? And I could probably, do with some repetition of this. I'm here to really understand why we can't achieve mutual understanding. I'm here to understand why is it that we can't disagree better than we currently do. That's what I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand how we have these conversations so we achieve mutual understanding, mutual curiosity, and this alignment that hopefully can lead to other things. That's what I'm here for. And, oh, by the way, ground truth is part of that, but it's not the sole part of it. Over.
Thank you. You know how some people like their food saltier than the others? Some people like it sweet, some people like it so it tastes good. I have no idea whether you like salt or you like sugar or you like honey or you like sour or you like bitter or whatever that is. So unless you tell us, how do you know when you get your understanding and knowledge? We have no way to know it. So we can just shooting the sky. So I would request that from you, that you need to tell me before you want me to answer a question. I know, how do I know that, Sam, before you answer my question, that I know that you acknowledge me and you all that stuff. So I want to tell you a quick story about was just came to Ohio State for the first, I think the first day or second day. I went to see my counselor, what do you call it? Advisor? Yeah, advisor. And coming from Malaysia, I have no idea what 1984 is the book, and then I asked him, have you read the book 1984? You know what he say? This is an insult to me because I have an English major, PhD, and so like, oh, I have no idea this is an insult. That's the first time I hear the word insult in English language. So I have him explain to me what insult means. I have him explain to me what not to do and all that stuff. So again, of course, my best intention is that I'm just curious about whether he read this book, but I have no idea in the background situation. I have no idea that you're a scientist versus you are, what do you call that, religious leader, because you expect different type of answer from different people, and it's your job to be clear about it before. It's like, okay, would you please hold the chili pepper on my curry or whatever you want to order? It's like, unless there's a request, you will not get it. And the disappointment will be constant, if I may say that. So the question is, when you don't get what you have, the first question I ask myself is, was I clear about what I was expecting? Thank you.
And I believe that's why I wanted to bring this up today. I was expressing my desire for the flavor of conversation that I seek.
Thank you.
Now, I do reference that weeks ago, we had at least 2 calls I believe, if I recall correctly, about Bombia Dialog, about the fact that we were trying to try it. Now, after that, I immediately went on, a trip that impacted my participation. So I'm just trying to bring that back to see if we still want
Yep.
to. Over.
Believe it or not, I know Bombia Dialog inside out. Again, I've been practicing this for the last 30 years, if I could say. 20 years is more like 25 years to be exact. 1999 is when I was introduced to that. I'm not already introduced to that. I was verified by my friend. That's like, okay, you passed the test or something along that line. So I'm very aware of it. But then again, it's a different structured discussion. You care about the facts, you care about opening up, clarity, and you care about what need to be get done instead of relationship based. I would say that if you follow Bombia Dialog, you have less laughters in the discussion, if I can say that, because they're so serious, they're so focused, they're so mindfully implementing what need to be done instead of whatever free flow discussion. It's not good, it's not bad. I'm just telling you that's what the difference and make the difference. By no means that we need to be in Bombia Dialog style, so I said all 2 hours, 120 minutes versus like, okay, we have Bombia Dialog for next 30 minutes or next 60 minutes. I think that would be less demanding. So we can have chunk down our discussion to the first 30 minutes is check in, say anything you want, do anything you want. That's your free fall. After that, the next 60 minutes will be Bombia Dialog style. And then by the time we finish all that 60 minutes, then we say, well, last 30 minutes will have freestyle again. We do whatever you want, all that stuff. So again, we have some playtime and we have some study time, think of it that way. And that will make the discussion much more desirable, shall I say. Again, it's all suggestion based on my experience of what need to be in structure and all that stuff. Barry, you got your fonts fixed?
Got my what fixed?
Fonts, size.
No, it turns out that that page that tells you how to change the font on the chat, I know how to do that. It doesn't tell you how to change the font on the transcript.
It says that. That's why it says. Let me go back.
Then I scanned it looking for, I saw a big example for the chat and I saw nothing for the transcript.
I know in the browser you can increase the percentage.
But this isn't the browser. I mean, this is a pop-up window in Zoom, which is its own application. It's a Zoom application, not the browser. It has a pop-up window for the chat and the transcript. One of them, I can change the font. I don't like that. Because I don't know how.
Are you talking about the chat transcript where we have a number of entries here? Because in Windows, which is what I'm using right now, Control equals will make the font larger. Control minus will make the font smaller.
Control equals. Control minus.
If you click in the chat transcript first and then hit Control equals, it'll make that transcript font larger or smaller.
I just found it.
Did it work for you, Barry?
I'm in the not the chat, the transcript. There's two different windows. One's called chat.
All right.
One's called, what is called meeting chat. That's the title. The other one is called transcript.
Okay, so I was
The
talking
meeting chat, it's I can read that. It's big. The one that's called just transcript, I can try. Well, I'm on a Mac, so I'll try command equal, command minus nothing. Option nothing.
Sign into the Zoom. I just pasted the chat into that's a closed caption. Adjust the size of the closed caption in Zoom. You can sign to the Zoom desktop client. Click on the profile picture. Click setting. Click the accessibility tabs. under the closed caption section, click and drag the sidebar to adjust the font size.
Closed captioning. Where's closed captioning? Captions. Participants chat, share screen summary, AI companion record, show captions, reactions, apps, whiteboards, and notes. Nothing is called closed captions. Well, show captions. Caption settings. Closed captions will look like this. Chat, no. See, then I see chat display size 200%. That's what I had. Closed caption. Oh, there it is. Font size, small, large. Oh, well, that's the separate where you just get a little closed captioning. That one's fine, but I want the transcript window, not the little, you know,
Oh, okay,
two
got it.
sentence version. I want the window that has the whole scroll back of the transcript.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding that myself.
Doesn't exist. It's chat display size. I have 200%. Closed captioning, I have big, but not transcript. And the transcript is so tiny that if I get, you know, if I get within 4 inches of it, I can start to read it. I mean, if it exists, I can't find it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing where I can see the transcript in its entirety.
Yes, I can turn on, you know, the closed captioning, but that's just the last 2 sentences, not the whole transcript.
Okay. So may I give you another thought on the previous topic?
Yes.
To me, engaging in Bombia Dialog is really, really fun because there's almost no place else that even wants to try it. I've been in conversations since 2011 where people mention Bombia Dialog. Okay. So yes, it's been mentioned in at least half a dozen different forums that I'm in, but it's rarely ever really practiced.
Yeah, that's right.
Rarely.
David Bohm gave up and left the country because he couldn't get people to do it, except for one person.
Barry, you said that, but I did a search and I found no reference to the fact that he gave up. Again, I want to go on the record.
He left. Did you find that he left the country?
Yes, he did.
Did it say why he left the country?
It did not say that that was the reason.
Did it say any reason?
I don't remember because I remember reading it in the session, but I don't remember exactly what it contained.
My understanding is that he gave up on his objective. He found one person, was it Chandrasekhar? Was that the guy's name? That he had a nice, famous recording of a Bombia Dialog, an Indian guy. And that was the only one that ever, you know, sort of made it into the Akashic record on YouTube. And then he basically threw up his hands and left the country. But I mean, I read that probably a decade ago. So
I really would like to find that reference because I did try and find it when you.
Now let's ask.
I couldn't find it.
Let's ask ChatGPT why David Bohm left the country. See if he knows why. Where's
Okay.
ChatGPT?
All right. That's a good.
Find it. Where's ChatGPT?
I'm sure the ChatGPT would not tell you that.
We'll find out. Let's see. I gotta find one that's got ChatGPT in it. I got too damn many tabs here.
Okay, how should I word this? Right now, I've said, did David Bohm give up on Bombia Dialog? Is that a reasonable way to ask? Or do you
No,
want
he didn't give up on it. He didn't give up on the idea. He gave up on the objective of having enough people in this country who would agree to do it with him. And then he basically just gave up on America.
Okay, I'm going to restate it. Did David Bohm give up on having enough people to agree practicing Bombia Dialog? Is that a good way to state it?
You can ask it that way. I probably would end up phrasing it after that. But.
Okay, so it is fired off. And I've got a dozen different GPTs coming back. Okay, so Llama 2 7DB at LMSys says, David Bohm did not give up on the idea of Bohmian dialogue, even though he may have had limited success in finding a group of people who were willing to engage in it with him.
Yes.
Bohm believed that the process of dialogue was an essential part of the development of a more holistic and integrated understanding of the world, and he continued to advocate for it throughout his life. In fact, Bohm's interest in dialogue and communication only grew stronger in the later years of his life. In the 1980s, he began to explore the possibility of using dialogue as a way to bridge the gap between different scientific disciplines and to foster a more integrated understanding of the natural world. He believed that by engaging in a deep and open-ended dialogue, scientists from different fields could come to a shared understanding of the fundamental principles. Blah, 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 blah. So it did not say that he gave up on Bohmian dialogue.
Ask why did David Bohm leave the United States and move to South America, and if so, why?
Okay, let me see.
And when?
Why did David Bohm leave the U.S. and go to South America? Is that the right way of
Yeah, and also find out, ask it what year that was. How far along in his career did that happen?
Okay, so why did David Bohm leave the U.S. and go to South America, parenthesis, what year? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, firing it off now. Now, there's a number of different responses still coming back from the previous query, so I'll see whether or not it takes a while for those to finish before this one gets fired off, because that's the way this app works. Okay, Zephyr 7B Beta says David Bohm left the United States in 1961 and moved to Brazil.
61.
But he spent several years at the University of Sao Paulo as a visiting professor. He went to South America primarily because he received an invitation from the Brazilian physicist Caio Mario de Nobrega, who was interested in learning more about Bohm's ideas in quantum mechanics. During his time in Brazil, Bohm also began exploring philosophical questions related to quantum theory, grounds of interesting political and economic issues, travel to Chile. Okay, so anyway, 1961, then he went to Chile in returned to England in 1973.
So he went to South America because he got invited to work on QM at a university.
Yes.
Had nothing to do with Bohmian dialogue, even though he hung on to the concept to his dying day.
Right.
He never convinced enough people to participate in it with him, except for that one famous long interview with was it Chandrasekhar? I forget the other guy's name that he had the famous one with.
Oh, here's a differing account. Vicuna 33B says David Bohm left the United States and moved to South America in 1975. The primary reason for his relocation was heightened political tension and paranoia during the McCarthy era, which targeted individuals suspected of having communist sympathies or being a security risk. Bohm was investigated by the House Un-American Activities Committee due to his earlier associations with communist organizations and figures, such as his involvement with the Young Communist League and his acquaintance with the philosopher and writer Herbert Marcuse. Fearing persecution and the potential loss of his security clearance, which would have severely impacted his career in theoretical physics, Bohm decided to leave the United States. That seems to be the real reason. He accepted an invitation to work at Universidad de Buenos Aires in Argentina, where he stayed for a year before moving to Brazil. Eventually settled in the country of Chile in 1975. So these two are very conflicting in their responses. It's a good thing
but none of them mention his disappointment with the success of the Bohmian dialogue as a factor.
That's right. So here's another one.
Maybe ask it this way: is the Bohmian David Bohm have any disappointment about
the success of the Bohmian dialogue?
Yeah, something along that line.
Promoting Bohmian dialogue.
Okay, so I'll say it this way. Was David Bohm disappointed in promoting Bohmian dialogue? Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, try that. The less wood, the better it is.
All right, here we go. All right.
Open question.
Very good. Okay, it's fired off. Now, number of the previous responses is still coming back, so I haven't gotten anything yet on this one. Here's another one that says 1961. Here's another one that says 1987.
Yeah, so he made multiple trips. He went to Chile, he went to Brazil, he went to England.
Here we go. Zephyr 7b beta. There is no clear evidence to suggest that David Bohm gave up on his vision of having enough people practice Bombia.
Not his vision, his success.
In fact, he continued promoting and teaching his method throughout his life until his death in 1992.
Yeah. But was he disappointed that it didn't have an impact? He believed in it and promoted it, but that doesn't mean that anybody responded to it and picked up on it and began using it.
So ask the question of, was he disappointed that he didn't have,
I
have
did
an
ask that,
impact?
so I am still waiting for that question to be responded.
Lack of success in convincing others to employ it systematically, with the exception of like one or two famous.
So this is what I'm talking about. Theoretical discussion and go to a real world. The success is the real world. The
Right.
feedback.
I mean, the JAXA hasn't given up on the belief that they can land a rover on the moon. It's just that they haven't had any success yet on this particular attempt.
Okay, now Zephyr 7b beta again comes back on that very last question. It's consistent with the previous one. Based on available sources, there's no evidence to suggest that David Bohm was disappointed in promoting Bombia Dialog. On the contrary, Bohm considers this method of communication and dialogue to be one of the most significant contributions he made during his lifetime. Bohm saw Bombia Dialog as a way to address fundamental problems underlying conflicts between individuals, groups, and nations, and believed that it had the potential to promote deeper understanding, empathy, and cooperation. Throughout his career, Bohm wrote extensively on the topic of dialogue, including publishing a book called On Dialogue, and he often incorporated these ideas into lectures and workshops aimed at helping others learn how to engage in meaningful dialogue. Furthermore, after his passing, many of Bohm's former students and colleagues continue to carry forward and expand upon his work in dialogue through their own research and practical applications. Okay, so I think it's consistent with what, let's say, visionaries experience. They die before their ideas really take hold and really spread. Look at Copernicus, look at Giordano Bruno, look at, almost anybody of consequence who introduced radically new ideas. So the fact that he had limited success in his lifetime, I don't consider that a problem whatsoever.
He died in what, 91?
Something like that.
And I didn't learn about Bombia Dialog, I think, until it was the 90s. I'm not sure exactly when I learned about it. It was probably in the 90s. I never heard of it until I essentially was retired and, searching for ways to employ the nascent internet. And I remember coming across the definition that contrasted dialogue with debate. And are you interrupting me, or should I continue?
I just want to speak after you're done.
Deborah Tannen wrote a book that was published, I think, in 1998. And it was about the argument culture, which she was criticizing. And she wrote a book criticizing the argument culture, the war of words. And in Deborah Tannen's book, she introduced the alternative of a dialogue model. And that may be where I came across it. I'll have to see if she expressly talks about it. But I learned about the dialogue model essentially when I began to appreciate the criticism of the debate model, where you adopt a position and defend it to your dying day.
Yeah.
As opposed to getting to the ground truth. And the alternative, if you look for proponents of the alternative, David Bohm stands out as the most remarkable proponent of the dialogue model. Probably not the only one. But the problem is here we are in 2024, and politics is still a debate. They're still trashing each other, promoting their perspective and ignoring and trashing the others. And you got this war of words. And if I were David Bohm or even Deborah Tannen, I would be disappointed the argument culture still reigns supreme.
Yeah. In fact, I think we brought this topic up before, but I wanted to say something because I found Llama 270B actually is very close to supporting your position, Barry. And let me just read that part, okay? David Bohm was certainly passionate about promoting Bombia Dialog, and he spent a significant amount of time and effort trying to share his ideas with others. However, it is important to note that Bohm's ideas about dialogue were not universally accepted or embraced during his lifetime, and he faced significant criticism and skepticism from some quarters.
Yep.
Bohm's advocacy for Bombian dialogue was not limited to his scientific work. He also sought to apply his ideas about dialogue to broader social and political issues, and he was actively involved in various initiatives aimed at promoting peace, understanding, and cooperation between different groups and nations. Despite his efforts, Bohm's ideas about dialogue and communication were not universally accepted or embraced. Some critics accused him of being overly idealistic or impractical, while others saw his ideas as a threat to traditional authority structures and power dynamics.
There you go.
Undoubtedly disappointed by the limited reception of his ideas about dialogue, particularly within the scientific community. However, he continued to advocate for his ideas and explore new ways of applying them in different contexts. In the years since Bohm's death, his ideas about dialogue and communication have gained greater traction and acceptance, particularly within the fields of psychology, education, conflict resolution. His work continues to inspire new generations of thinkers and practitioners who are exploring the potential of dialogue and collaboration to foster greater understanding and creativity in a variety of contexts. Overall, while David Bohm may have faced challenges and disappointments in promoting the ideas about dialogue during his lifetime, his work continues to have a lasting impact and inspire new developments in the fields of science, philosophy, and communication. So this is the one that I think comes closest to your position about him.
Yeah. It doesn't give the reference to which literature it's paraphrasing that from. But it would have been probably material from the 1990s, because that would be in the common crawl. By the internet was basically operational in the 90s. But unfortunately, the problem with these llamas is it doesn't tell you where it got it from.
See, there's another reason why I try to really understand this, okay? Because interpretations of historical events, like disappointment, like failure, like success, those are interpretations levied by individuals much, much later, okay? So that's why everything is a story unless you get to, as you say, the ground truth.
Yeah.
The ground truth, we're trying to figure out when things happened, what he was doing, where he was, who invited him, all this sort of thing. The interpretation was, oh, he left the U.S. because he couldn't get people to talk about Bombian dialogue. That's an interpretation which I'm looking for evidence to support.
I wonder if Wikipedia, Wikipedia is usually pretty liberal about criticisms of the topic. Let's see if they explain the origin of the criticisms. Where's the Wikipedia article? There it is, right there. Bohm dialogue. It's just Bohm dialogue in that one. Theory, okay. Theory. Principles, okay. Experience. Post Bohm. Let's see.
Okay, so I further added this question. What does Wikipedia say about Bohm and this disappointment with acceptance of his principles on dialogue? So that's a way to focus this.
I don't find the word critic. Did I spell it right? No, that's why I didn't spell it right. See if the word critic is in there. No, so the word critic or criticism is not in the Wikipedia text.
If I may, I would say I'm more interested in about how he developed the Bombian dialogue in the beginning, and through time, what he learned, what works, what doesn't work, and what's the difficulty that he's facing. So he's making modification based on the feedback he receives. I'm more interested in that trend of learning rather than the disappointment. All that to me means nothing to me, because he has problem doesn't mean I'm going to have problem.
Right. Yeah, that would be an interesting evolution to understand.
Yeah, but the rejection or criticism or whatever you want to call it, I'd love to know what the source for that was. Because I remember coming across that, but it would have been 30 years ago.
I would love if the three of us, or whoever participates, would examine each of these principles of Bombian dialogue and decide, do we think that there's a there? Or do we say, this one, not so much? I'd really be curious to see us really lean into those principles.
Sure.
That discussion could then give each of us, and if it's on record, hopefully others, a much deeper understanding of Bombian dialogue and what each of those principles tries to do.
But notice that we have struggled to implement Bombian dialogue right here.
Because we don't understand it.
Well,
discussed it.
I think also because it is such an alternative to the normal way in our culture that we argue and debate and express our points and expect the other person to nod smiling and say, yes, I believe that too. And we live in a very competitive, argumentative society. That's the Deborah Tannen thesis.
That's why I love an opportunity to do otherwise.
Yeah.
Let me see this. Yeah. So
And I suspect that our failure to embrace it and employ it was similar. David Bohm had a similar experience. And whether or not he comes out and says, I'm really disappointed that nobody bought my idea. I mean, a lot of people who have bright ideas that languish for decades will, on their deathbed, will write, I was disappointed. Isaac Asimov talked about his disappointment that some of his ideas languished and never got embraced. He was one of the ones who actually said it.
Sure. So imagine the first person who thought of, hey, rule by popular vote, aka democracy. How widely do you think that was accepted when that was first expressed?
Socrates thought it was going to fail and said why.
Exactly. So that there is personal failure on the part of the person who first expressed it means almost nothing to me.
Yeah. Well, it's a prediction. But the thing was, Socrates was predicting that he was observing it had a weakness and predicting that the weakness would be not necessarily fatal, but it would severely disable the functionality of democracy. It wouldn't live up to its dream because of its inherent weakness. And he was right. Here we are, what is it, 1,500 years later, or however long it's been since Socrates. And here we are in America in the 21st century, and it's exactly what he predicted is happening. Misinformation, disinformation. Right. The guy who gets elected president is an outright liar. And the bottom half of the Google News is debunking all the baloney that people are saying, the malarkey, the baloney, the Sagan's baloney detection. They're all saying we're awash in baloney. And that ruins democracy, among other things. It undermines the propaganda.
Yeah.
The head of the FBI, the famous one, the first one, Masters
Hoover?
of Deceit.
Hoover?
Yeah. What's his name?
J. Edgar?
J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover writes a book early in his career, Masters of Deceit. It's about propaganda. And he says the Soviets, the Eastern Bloc, are masters of deceit. Well, that was probably true then. And today you can apply it to practically any government. Masters of deceit and propaganda, disinformation, misinformation. And that means that people are not well informed to make good judgments on voting. Now, I have a proposal to save democracy. Don't vote for solutions, vote for values that you think are high. Vote that you think infrastructure is a high value, but not how to get it. Vote for education as a high value, but not how to get it. And then let the experts, the subject matter experts, figure out how to implement the goals that can reach the value, but vote for the values. You want to reach the moon, vote for space exploration. Then let the NASA subject matter experts figure out how to do it.
See, I'd like to go and take this to a step where it's not a vote. We co-create it. If we co-create a vision for the future, which will then be a way of aggregating our collective values, to say, here's how education plays into the quality of life in society. Here's how parenting plays into the structure of society. Here's how infrastructure plays into the structure of society. And if we have that constructive conversation at a social scale that makes sense, both local, community, rural, geographic area, and nation, then I think we have the engagement we want, I would like to see, to co-create the future with my fellow citizens. It shouldn't be one vote every four years. That's like nothing, right? That's hardly any participation whatsoever. But if we're daily or weekly or monthly in a town hall, in a city hall, in a town city council, having these conversations about how does making sure children are fed, lead into reduction in crime, et cetera, okay? Those conversations can easily, be seen to shape society. And that's what I want to see, not votes on a scheduled Tuesday where you have to travel for 8 hours, to get to a polling place because people have made it very difficult for you to vote, and you cannot drink water in the 8 hours that you're standing in line. That's bullshit.
Yeah, that's you're voting for tactics, which are contraindicated tactics for the short term, instead of voting for strategies, which are realistic strategies to reach a long-term visionary goal. If you vote for visionary goals and then you let the experts figure out how to reach them, you have a better chance than if you're voting for short-term tactics.
This is the idea behind my quote unquote mentor. God. Haven't talked about it in so long. Why is it that I don't know?
It's like busing immigrants to New York
Co-creating
City.
a future business.
That's a tactic.
Why is this? I haven't mentioned it in so long. This is a brain fart on my part.
You're looking for nomenclature?
I have nomenclature. I just don't recall it.
Put in the definition
since 2009.
Put in the definition to ChatGPT and say, what is the term of art for? And then give the definition.
Global sim. That's the word that I've used for it.
Global sim?
Yes.
Oh. It's like collaborology. It's a made-up word.
That's right. That's right. But it's made up, and I've been discussing it since about 2009. In fact, I'll tell you what it is in my own definition.
That's the problem with making up words that nobody knows what they mean.
Okay. In my view, and I'll just summarize the key ideas. Knowledge that's executable, that produces predictive simulations regarding global collaboration at all levels of interoperability, tactical to strategic, that collects data from big analytics and does what-if analysis and predictions, incorporates heuristics as well as formal logic, as well as system models, as well as systemic thinking, so that we can each add our own thoughts, models, heuristics, principles to co-creating scenarios of the future. That's global sim for me.
Yes, systems thinking,
right?
Systemic models that make reliable predictions. I mean, when I look at a theory, as in the domain of a systems theory, I want a theory that has explanatory power, predictive power, and diagnostic power. And you can easily, Ichio Kaku will give you a theory that has explanatory power, but he won't make any predictions because they're too technical, the quantitative predictions. But you want predictive power, quantitative, and then key thing is, if the reduction to practice doesn't yield what the theory promises, does the theory give you a diagnostic power to figure out what's going wrong? And the absence of diagnostic power, I think, is the single most problematic challenge of theory, the difference between theory and practice. If it doesn't have diagnostic power, it doesn't do me any good. I mean, I can give you explanation, which is maybe bullshit, or maybe insightful. I can make a prediction, which may or may not be true, but if I can't diagnose when things go haywire, why did the lander not get power?
Yep.
Diagnose it, damn it.
And at the risk of triggering us again, that's one of my key complaints about religion and religious, dogma. It claims to have explanatory power, but it doesn't have, true diagnostic power. It has no predictive power.
That's true of metaphysics in general. The whole thing about metaphysics is it's not physics. It doesn't have quantitative models. You don't have a formulaic equation. And the thing is that metaphysics is gradually, physics is gradually enlarging to embrace what used to be called metaphysics. The social sciences, the psychological sciences, the learning theory stuff. Gradually, physics, or the tools of physics, are expanding to embrace what used to be called metaphysics.
Right. Which is why I was initially going to bristle at your statement there, but you've come around to expanding that statement.
Yeah.
I think metaphysics is very unlike religion.
Well, spirituality is sort of considered to be metaphysics. I mean, if you say, where would you put spirituality in the domain of things that people care about? You would have to say metaphysics, because it's not physics, or at least didn't used to be.
Depends on how you define it.
Yeah, the point is that when Kurzweil writes The Age of Spiritual Machines, machines that can have insight or vision, or be goal-oriented, or become satisfied. I mean, the simplest thing about spirituality is if you adopt a practice which is claimed to reach a goal, you're either satisfied that it did the job, or you're dissatisfied that it failed or had a shortcoming. So satisfaction and dissatisfaction, your furnace and thermostat has two states: satisfied, shut the heat down, we're there, or dissatisfied, we're not there yet, keep on chugging. And so, when the vendor says satisfaction guaranteed or your money back, that's affect. And you could have
that with religion. I'd love to see that.
anything that has two states, satisfied, stop working, or dissatisfied, keep on chugging, that's affect. And that's sort of the foot in the door to spirituality.
Okay, so if I may ask a question, how does this particular branch of the conversation fold back to what I thought was a previous topic, which was Bombia Dialog?
No, the previous topic was dogma.
That's one of the intermediate, yes.
Yeah, when you said I'm going to bring up dogma, I'm pushing back on dogma.
Specifically religion and religious practice and dogma, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pointing out that when you talk about metaphysics, which embraces all that stuff, that physics, which is to say mathematical modeling, is beginning to make inroads into spirituality. And a lot of spirituality is like hope and faith. Okay. So hope and faith hope is the emotional sponsor of research. St. Jude's Children's Hospital, we hope to find the cure for children's diseases. If you didn't have hope, you wouldn't have St. Jude's or any of the other research projects that we hope to land a man on the moon and bring him back safely in this decade. Hope is a sponsor of research. Hope is an emotion. I hope to find a life partner and live happily ever after. It's a dream. Hopes and dreams.
I don't understand.
If I can go back, one thing I want to make sure I got it right before we go into the next topic, the FX, the thermostat, satisfied, not satisfied, shut down the heat, FX. What can you elaborate more about that? Because I want to make sure I truly understand that. I didn't quite get it. The dogma is okay for me. That's why I call it structured thinking. Yeah.
If you have a goal and you have a method that purports to reach the goal,
okay,
you employ the method. You continue to use the method until you successfully reach the goal.
Okay.
And then you say, I have achieved the goal. That's a definition of success. And then I can stop trying to reach it. I'm there.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you haven't reached the goal, and this is the only method you got, put more wood on the fire, you put more wood on the fire, and you keep trying to reach the goal. So you either have not there yet, okay, disappointed.
Yep.
And think about disappointed. I appoint you to do a job. You don't do the job. I'm disappointed.
Got it.
I'm taking
So the
away
word
your
that you
appointment.
use, FX. How do you spell it? FX.
AFFECT, affect.
AFX.
Affect is a clinical term for emotion. And we use the term affect because affect, say you have analog brakes on your car,
Right.
some other thing on your car. Affect is this: the car says, I'm not in the optimal state. I'm affected by the measurement that my car is not doing what we want it to do. And so I'm going to take some appropriate measure to correct it. So affect simply says my speed is getting too slow or too fast, or I'm sliding sideways, or my two wheels are not spinning at the same speed. I'm disaffected, and then I'm going to take measures to correct that. And then either I'm satisfied that I corrected it, or I'm still dissatisfied, and I got to figure out either do more of the same or something completely different. Machines can do that, just same as humans. I say the same. I mean, maybe not the same strategies.
So affect that you talk about, you only have one method, and as far as I'm concerned, when you have one method, you're stuck. You're not going anywhere because it's not flexible enough that to adjust to it. So, for example, the one that we usually make joke of is like meditation. It's like, okay, I know how to meditate already, so I can stop meditating.
Yeah, but
I know how to shower. I know how to shower. I know my shower, and I can stop showering.
I washed my hands, but the stuff didn't come off.
Right.
The stuff that's on my hands doesn't come off of soap.
Brush it today.
Yeah. So
the FX, yeah, I'm interested in that because it's going to a different way of explaining that you're stuck with one way to do something.
But take homing pigeons. Homing pigeons have 3 ways of navigating, 3 different ways, and they will use the way that's working in the domain they're in. And then when that way stops working, they'll switch to the next domain. So there's vision, there's magnetic fields. I forget what the fourth, there's 3 or 4 different ways that they can navigate. If it's cloudy, if it's sunny, the terrain, they can listen to the wind on the terrain and tell whether, so they can recognize the geometry of the terrain, they can recognize magnetic fields, and they can use vision. And they did experiments where they put clouded contact lenses on the homing pigeons to see what happens if you take away their vision. And they would fly to within 100 feet of the nest, and then they would helicopter down and walk because they couldn't see the last, they couldn't see the driveway. So they would have, and he pointed out, this guy from Cornell, how each modality was used in a different context. And but it had multiple ways of doing the same thing. And it would abandon one when it was no longer working, relevant, and switch to the next one, the backup method.
Right. This is what I call that your priority change depending on the conditions you're in, right?
Right. When I was driving home last night and it was snowing, I was driving slow.
Right. And then I want to go back to so we got this FX that's only have one way to do something. And then we have dogma of the Bombia Dialog, if I want to call that a dogma. Then how do we make this a winning case?
How do you switch from tactics to strategy and back again? First, you try tactics, short-term, high energy. If that doesn't work, and you can prove that tactics are backfiring, counterproductive, then you switch to strategy. You don't try to fix it now, you try to think of a way to fix it in the long run. And this toggling between tactics and strategy in the military domain, that's a big issue. Can I clobber the guy and put him out of business now? Or do I have to use long-term strategy to win in the long run, even though I'm not winning in the short run?
So what I call strategy is more like a meta tactic. Meta tactic.
Strategy is long-term planning for a goal that's going to be reached in the distant future, as opposed to a goal that's going to be reached tomorrow.
Got it.
When Putin says the war in Ukraine will be over in a day, he was using tactical reasoning. He thought he had a tactic that was going to win the war in a day. Didn't. So then he had to switch to a strategy, but he hadn't prepared a strategy. And so the war dragged on for 1.5 years. Meanwhile, Ukraine's using both combinations of tactics to push them back, and strategy to win in the long run with drones and other sanctions and things like that.
Right. So again, I'm going to pull back to where about Bombia Dialogs, right? So how do we deal with this situation here that we are supposedly to put it in the highest priority at this moment? Right now, it's the top priority at this moment.
Maybe we got to be more strategic. Maybe we're trying tactics that today for 1 hour on a Sunday, we're going to do Bombia Dialog. That's the tactic. and it's not working. Then we have to think about strategy. Why is it not working? Diagnostic reasoning. And how can we, over the long term, amp up the functionality of Bombia Dialog so we do more of it, but we don't solve it in 1 day or 1 hour?
But then in that strategy and tactics discussion or whatever you want to call that labeling thing, then you have this Bombia Dialog is a dogma because it fit into the definition of dogma. So now what?
If it doesn't work, and this is the issue that Bohm, I think, wrestled with, when his idea wasn't catching on, he was getting pushback, and people who weren't agreeing to try it and criticizing it, he had to switch to long-term thinking. And long-term thinking could be, its time hasn't come, but after I'm dead and gone, it'll catch on. And a lot of people realize that I'm going to write this stuff down in artful form so that the 3rd generation from now will become aware of it and adopt it from the get-go. Go ahead, Sam.
I think it's curious to apply the notion of dogma to these principles of Bombia Dialog. I think that can be fair if we don't understand what those principles are and we try to apply them blindly, incorrectly, without looking at whether or not they're effective or not. That's why I think the earlier suggestion of, hey, let's look at each of these principles and let's see what it actually takes to practice them and what it actually produces as an outcome, I think is a good one. That's
strategic thinking. Yeah, you're talking about strategic
us
thinking.
really to understand mutually and collectively and deeper what those principles are trying to do. And until we do that, each of us has our own potentially incorrect view of what it means to practice Bombia Dialog.
Or we're stuck in our habitual, we have habits which we acquired in our youth, which we haven't sort of thrown away. We have these bad habits.
We are violating Bombia Dialog right and left for the last 7 years. Okay. So I don't think we've actually given it a fair chance.
I define success as not failing. Okay.
Well, but if I stand in one position, I'm not succeeding, I'm not failing. I'm just standing.
I'm just saying that because of the way that things go, so it's like, okay, think of this way, right? What's the definition of dogma? Is the definition of dogma fitting what Bombia Dialog is? If it is, then we need to look at it front and center. It's like, okay, that's why dogma failed, because dogma has a much more massive data of example why it fails, versus the Bombia Dialog is a very specific subset of dogma, or whatever you want to call it. I was looking for, again, when I implement anything in my company, I would say I'm looking for what's the reason will bring me down, what's the reason will make me fail. So that's what I'm going for, dogma, not just because I want to shove it down the throat, but rather that because it has much more richer example and what causes it to fail, over centuries of data we have, right? So that's the reason why I say, what's the definition of dogma? And how does it fit into, and why is it not fit into, and all that.
Karma just ran over your dogma. I think habits that you form early in life are really hard to get rid of for most people. And people who have a vision say we have to discard these bad habits, but that ain't easy. The dogma is that you can turn around and say, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. I'm going to discontinue this bad habit. And then it doesn't happen. The dogma is good luck.
I do pay attention to my habit. When I change my habit, when did I change it? Last time I changed my habit is when there's a compelling reason that it really shocked me. There's something to do with life and death, so I better quit my habit. So then it changed my habit so fast that I don't even know I changed it.
I'll give you an example. I have a habit of not chewing my food enough and swallowing little chunks of food that haven't been fully masticated. But now I have esophageal stricture, a kind of a tightening of the size of the esophagus. And now if I swallow a piece of carrot or a piece of potato that I haven't chewed, it can get stuck. And I got to get rid of the habit of not chewing my food.
That's
and
a twice
in the last couple of months, I swallowed a piece of food that I hadn't chewed enough and it got stuck.
Yeah. That's a gradual version of the habit changing behavior.
I've been told since a kid, Barry, chew your food. Don't wolf it down. Chew your food.
But one day, if you cannot get the food out, you're in big trouble. The 911 people come, they will change you right away, instantly.
Fortunately, it doesn't block my breathing, but it means I can't finish. I can't get the food down. It gets stuck, you know, at the juncture. And so I'm learning, you know, twice it happened, once on Thanksgiving and once last night.
And
I want to tell you,
What?
and to be non-Bohmian, when you're choking, shall I pray for you or shall I perform the Heimlich maneuver?
Neither. I have to go. It's not that I can't breathe. I can still get air into my lungs, but I can't get the food that's lodged in the esophageal stricture either up or down. But I can go and cough it back up again. I can cough it back up. I just have to go in and cough it up. But I'm not gonna do it on my plate. I got to go, you know, in a commode and cough it. And I had to go and cough it up. Piece of food that was stuck got coughed up, and I was fine. It's like trying to put your food in the blender. You know, you have to have the pusher to push the food in the blender. Well, I don't have a pusher. It's got to already be mashed up like baby food. Why is baby food mashed? Because the size of the esophagus is so tiny for a baby. You know, it has to be soft food. And the baby can't chew yet. Can't masticate enough. So here I am sort of back in the masticate or eat mashed potatoes, not you know, not regular potatoes.
so Sam, if I may ask you to ask your ChatGPT massive search engine thing, is that comparing Bombia Dialog with Dogma, what's the difference that make the difference?
Good luck getting an answer on that one. You get a definition.
Okay, let me repeat that again. Comparing Bohmian Dialog with Dogma, what is the difference that makes the difference? Right?
That's right.
Verbatim. Okay,
Yeah,
here it
please.
goes.
Thank you.
Here it goes.
Verbatim and verbatim. Verbatim.
I call that facing the failure mode in front end.
Gregory Bateson is coined the term, the difference that makes the difference for information.
Gregory Bateson, yeah. I love that words.
By the way, there's a controversy about Bateson and Margaret Mead.
Isn't that AKA principal components analysis?
That may be an instance of it.
Okay, I'm waiting for these things to respond. Nothing's come back yet.
It's not
thinking,
easy.
It's thinking hard on this one. All of them are. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 of them going on.
How much fossil fuels is that burning up to run all those computers?
Okay, one of them has begun to respond. The first sentence it came back with is, this is Zephyr 7b beta. Bohmian Dialog and Dogma differ fundamentally in their approaches to knowledge and belief formation.
Oh,
Here are some key differences, and it's now iterating those.
I like that. That was concise.
Openness versus closedness.
I don't already know the answer.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, Dogma, you already know the answer. Bohmian Dialog, you're looking for an answer that has promise that you don't already know. Yeah, so it's acquiring knowledge afresh as opposed to reciting baked in knowledge, you know. So
that's why I think answers, especially immediate answers, are more closed rather than open.
Well, immediate answers is this is what I already know. Now, the question is what I already know comprehensive and complete and reliable, or is it vague and unreliable and criticizable?
Or
Of course,
does it
everything's
really
precise.
apply to the intent of the question?
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Okay, so here's the next sentence. Openness versus closedness. Bohemian dialogue emphasizes openness, curiosity, and exploration,
Yep.
whereas dogmatic beliefs close off further investigation and questioning.
yeah,
Bohemian dialogue encourages participants to listen carefully, challenge assumptions, examine alternative perspectives, and consider new information.
yep, yep. New information. Yeah, dogma is you make an assertion and then you follow it by saying end of story. You put a period, end of story, and that's dogma. If you don't put a period and say end of story, then you're saying, what do you think? Is there any merit to what I just asserted? But if you say assertion, end of story, that's dogma. I had a correspondent who used to put end of story after some assertion. And to my mind, it wasn't. It was not even the beginning of the story. It was just some misconception or some
Okay,
naive.
so this has taught me something useful in interacting with you, Barry. In other words, when you come back with an immediate response, I should I should append, and what do you think of it? Which is
Yeah.
implied,
Is that the end of the story? Or is there more? Is there more to ponder?
right? Whereas right now, the way you state it, when you say, here's the answer, I take it as end of story.
Well, that's interesting because usually it's the end of my contribution for now. I have no further contribution now. This is what I know now, which may or may not be authoritative. I've been told way back in the Bell Labs days that I sound authoritative when I don't believe that I'm authoritative. But I come across as sounding like I'm the closed book, the authoritative book on the question. And I may be the most knowledgeable one in that particular group, which makes me sound authoritative. And the other people basically, they say, well, this guy's thought about it for a month and here's what he's saying. I have no comeback to that. And so they'll say I sound authoritative. And it's probably true. And maybe sometimes I am the authoritative answer because I've done the research and I found the best thinking, not just my own, but the best thinking available at that time. I mean, I can give examples of it. There's some famous anecdotes in my past where I did give the authoritative answer, and people found that disturbing.
See, in my view, and I will say it's personal view, if a question is immediately answered with and that's my response, end of story, and there's been like less than a second between the question and the answer, then essentially the answer is based on a lot of precompiled knowledge.
Yep.
Which may not really understand the intent of the question in context.
Possibly.
That's what I am trying to elicit, is that real curiosity about the question.
Yeah. The key word there is intent, and I consider myself utterly incompetent at eking out somebody's unstated intent.
Well, if you're not questioning it, then you're assuming you know it.
No. I'm not assuming I know the intent. I'm stating that I haven't a clue what your intent is.
So you are when you answer authoritatively.
No, it's independent of intent. I just took the question at face value, and I don't try to reason out the intent behind why you asked the question that you asked.
Okay.
There may be an intent, but that doesn't mean I have a clue what it is.
Let me go back to this. At the beginning of today's session,
Yeah.
I expressed an interest in Bohemian dialogue and why I was a bit frustrated yesterday. Okay. So, did you believe that you understood my intent about Bohemian dialogue, or was there much more that you could have understood had you questioned my intent.
My best understanding of your intent is that you're interested in exploring and adopting Bombia Dialog. Why? I don't know. I mean, I can speculate why, but that's theory of mind. And I consider myself incompetent at theory of mind. And intent is theory of mind.
No, because I stated, hey, we talked about it weeks ago. We talked about it at least twice. So there's
Yep.
at least some foundation within this series of conversations for why I brought it back. Right?
Yeah, you think it has merit and it's worth exploring and adopting, which I don't disagree with, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the total theory of your intent. That's the superficial. This is the surface intent.
Absolutely. Right.
But you could have other reasons that are hidden agendas that I wouldn't know anything about. If you have a hidden agenda,
I mean, if they're unstated, they're not necessarily hidden. They're just, unstated.
Well, unstated, yeah. Well, unstated is in a sense, for my purposes, is hidden for me.
Okay, this is a very key point. It's hidden if there isn't an opportunity to state them. Okay, so in other words, if you believe, okay, I'm going to give an answer because I understand 10% of the intent, I'm going to respond to that, and I'm not going to ask about the other 90%. Then in my view, it stays unstated, but there's no reason for it to be hidden. I'm more than willing to disclose the other 90%. It's just that there wasn't the curiosity and the follow-up to really, ask it.
I'll tell you why I say, why do you ask? Why I don't say, why do you ask? When people say, why do you ask? It really means, I don't want to answer that question. So
That's an assumption. That's an assumption. That's a huge assumption.
I've seen politicians do, or other people do that.
Are we politicians here?
Well, I don't know, maybe. But the why do you ask is sort of an evasive response.
Did any of us ask, why did you ask?
No, that's the whole point. You're suggesting that I could ask, why are you asking this question? What is your intent?
Yes.
But I don't. And the reason I don't ask for intent is because it's a delaying tactic that puts off responding.
That's a huge assumption, Barry. It's a huge assumption.
Yes, my dogma.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
But I will rarely ask somebody, why are you asking that question?
I think it's a very valuable.
Because the answer is because I want to know the answer. The assumption is you ask the question because you're curious to know the answer.
See, when I ask a question, I'm not so much curious to know the answer. I'm curious to understand the mind, the reasoning behind your response. The response itself is secondary.
Yeah, well, I can say, here's the theorem. By the way, there's a proof to the theorem. The proof is like 10 pages long, but here's the theorem.
So basically,
I'll give you the theorem and not the proof because I figure you don't want to slog through the proof.
That's a big assumption also.
Yeah, but you know that if I slog through the proof, that's going to fill up the whole hour and you're still not.
You could say, would you like to hear the proof? Would you like to hear the derivation?
Yeah, but then I have to go back and reconstruct the proof to present it because off the top of my head, proofs off the top of my head are useless. They're crap.
That's a twist. Anyway, well, Sam was about to say something.
Why do you believe the Pythagorean theorem? Because it's been proved a number of times, but don't ask me to give you any of the proofs.
Let's focus on the ground truth here, okay? The ground truth is Barry has a habit that cannot change, and Sam have a habit that cannot change. So not with that, okay?
No,
one thing at a time. Okay, let me go on the next step. So he has a habit that is difficult for him to change, okay? That you have a habit that's difficult to change, okay? So let's start with that.
That's another assumption.
Now, if you're asking a question or making an assumption that you didn't explicitly ask for it, who will get the answer right? Because it's impossible. So unless you tag on your questions, or when you ask a question, you need to add on certain criteria. That's what I'm saying. Unless you're explicitly asking for what you need to get, you will not get it because he cannot change his habit. You cannot change your habit. So we're stuck in the whatever we're stuck in.
Okay, so let me take exception to that. I like to ask questions to see whether people are curious.
So you can change your name.
curiosity is?
You can say, you can change your name on the tag and say Sleepy GPT. I like to ask question and why people asking questions. So if you put that in writing, that will be much more explicit. And Barry can say, well, I answer the question based on what I know, but I don't know what any of your assumptions are. Right, something along that line. Put in your name so that people can see it as a there will be tag on your every sentence that you say.
See, this is where in a normal quote unquote conversation outside this forum, I don't expect people to be that curious about questions. This forum, I am. Because in a systemic view, the answer is incidental to me. It's more systemic to understand the derivation and the thinking and the model behind it. And that's what I would like to get to for mutual understanding.
So you want to answer you say your question and they say, when you answer, would you please blah 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 at the end, so that you will get again.
I can do that. I can do that. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Unless you
also
do
looking
that,
for those people who naturally do that. It's hard to find.
my habits with conversation with other people is the same habit I have conversation with you, but I might give more attention to your thing because you're much more specific what you ask for. But that's about the fine tuning I can give. I don't get into the every question you have. You're curious about why you what my assumptions are and all that stuff, because then the whole conversation will be unnatural, shall I say?
I
Well,
had a
there's
counselor, who once urged that I prefix a response by saying, to my mind, ... or according to the model I rely on, ... But I normally don't prefix a response by saying to my mind or the model I rely on according to, because that seems so obvious that what else could it be relying on except to my mind? or according to the model that I'm relying. I mean,
But unless you remind them that unless you remind them that they keep forgetting, remember the habit you're stuck with and the habit they're stuck with.
The question is, what else could I be relying on except the contents of my mind or the model I'm relying on to give you an answer? What else could it be? I'm making it up. I'm making up a fairy tale out of whole cloth.
You see, you're stuck with your habit. I'm stuck with my habit. I miss assumptions.
Well, I mean, I could say, well, one could imagine and then say ...
This is what I'm saying by the person that requested the information need to explicitly ask for that. Unless you explicitly ask for that, you will not get what you want. So
I assume that they want to know what's on my mind. To my mind, ...
Because the answer you have given is incomplete as far as the receiver is concerned. And if the receiver doesn't have the guts or have the courage or have the request coming back, the receiver will not receive what is need to be received. That's all. You don't have salt and pepper for my steak? Okay, fine. I'm going to eat my steak without salt and pepper. That's fine with me,
I mean, Stacy did an exercise. She says, let's do an experiment with ChatGPT to ask it to invent a fairy tale. And we prefix it, but don't just give us, your state of knowledge. Make up a fairy tale about this topic. And it can do that. Now, if you ask me to make up a fairy tale or an allegory or a parable, I would say, give me a couple of days. You want me to know what's on my mind now? I can tell you what's on my mind now, or the model I'm relying on now, or I'll say, I don't have a model for that. I haven't a clue. And if you ask a question, I don't have a clue, I'm pretty candid about saying, I never thought about that. I don't even know a good model for that. I don't have a clue. And then not give you a speculation. Or I might give you a speculation. Well, it could be this, it could be that, but who knows? Quien sabe. But the other thing is, who's asking? Who wants to know? That's one of those evasive responses, like saying, I'm not going to give you an answer, whether I have one or not. Who wants to know? Why do you ask?
It can be evasive. It can also be very, very significant leaning in and an indication of curiosity.
If it's a stranger who's asking the question and they're being disingenuous, if they're trolling me, So if somebody's trolling me, and I don't consider you to be trolling, but I have encountered people who are trolling, who ask a question not because they want the answer, but because they want the entertainment of trolling. And if I can get the evidence somebody's trolling, then I'll say, you're just trolling me. You don't want an answer. An answer. You're trolling me. I don't think you're trolling me. I think you wanted the answer.
I'm actually inviting some investigation into this phenomenon, but
Yeah.
may I change the subject significantly since we're in the last 15 minutes or so?
Oh yeah, it's quarter of the top.
Yeah, go for it.
Last night, Gail and I went to Pub 282, which is a restaurant slash bar, because I wanted to see the Niners play the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs. Okay, so it turns out the very same evening, 2.5 hours later, one of our local artists, a woman named Savannah Woods, was playing. Now, she was famous because she was actually on a national TV show called The Voice. And I hadn't thought that, oh, Savannah is going to be here this evening and we were going to be there and this place is going to be packed.
Well, playing music.
Oh, she's a singer. She's got a band. You
Oh,
know,
okay. When you said playing and the context was a football game, like what?
Sorry. No. She's actually a local singer. She plays, she sings a number of classics as well as her own songs.
All right, I got you.
She was definitely featured on The Voice, and she's got national renown now.
All right, I'm with you.
So in this place we go, and about an hour into the situation, maybe half an hour into the situation, people start really piling in, okay? And this couple comes up, and Gail and I are sitting at a table that's normally able to seat 4. And because the entire place is packed, she said, can we sit here? I said, oh, by all means. But the woman had a Trump button on her shirt, okay? And so I have to say, oh, and by the way, I have to warn you, I am not a Trump supporter. Okay. And so they sat down anyway. And it turned out for about 2 hours, I attempted to have a conversation about why she believes certain things about Trump. And, you know, I got back a lot of feedback about how criminal Biden was and about all the reasons that, you know, he should be impeached. And I asked every one of her claims. I looked up and I said, this is not what it says. It says this has been falsified, this has been contradicted, this is a conspiracy theory, blah, blah, blah. And I would give her what I have been aware of. And she would look on her phone and couldn't find anything because her phone was not connecting to the internet. Okay. So I was basically giving her, you know, my searches, and she would say, oh, well, your phone is, you know, obviously controlled by the liberal media, and it's not connected to, you know, the real news sources. So I said, so what are the real news sources? And she's, oh, I read everything. Okay, fine. So I said, here's what NBC says, here's what, you know, CBS says, here's what ABS says. And she's, oh, no. They're all still, you know, falsifying the actual truth, you know. And I keep asking her, so which one of these are the ones that you're actually reading? And she couldn't actually tell me. Okay. So for 2 hours of this, I tried. I mean, I tried to focus on the football game really, but she was really very adamant. I mean, just the fact that she shows up at an event with a big Trump button on her shirt was kind of an indicator of the fun and games to follow.
After a while, were you trolling her after a while?
After a while, I think we were both trolling each other because I couldn't find anything that she was saying that I could verify. And I said, okay, so do you have a daughter? She said, yes, I have a daughter. So how would you feel if Trump actually grabbed her by the pussy? And she's quite okay with that, you know. She said, oh, you know, this is just a thought. You didn't actually do it. And I said, what do you mean? You know, oh, that video clip, he wasn't actually, you know, grabbing somebody's pussy. But wait a minute. I said, this is the way somebody thinks. This is the guy who, you know, controls what, Miss America or whatever contest, you know, he was in charge of, and just randomly goes into dressing rooms just completely unannounced. And he's been on Epstein's island plane how many dozens of times, and it says, oh no, well, you know, Clinton had sex with those 13-year-olds, but Trump certainly didn't. So after a while, it was just very difficult to have these conversations. But I tried. I really tried, because I said I would really, really like to get into a conversation with someone who supports Trump so that maybe I could correct my understanding of things. And I don't think I got very far.
Your understanding of that she's a blathering idiot, essentially.
I mean, I gave her all opportunity to show me, you know, the basis on which she made these claims. And
By the way, there's a story, and I don't know if it's merit to it, that Bill Clinton is impotent. And part of the story is that he didn't even father Chelsea.
but wait a
Now
minute.
that part
He
of it,
left
that part of it, I'm a
semen
little bit skeptical
stains-
of.
He
But
left semen stains on a dress.
yeah, there's a story that he's shooting blanks, because that means that it's not viable. This may be semen, but it ain't viable. So
Okay,
whether the
fine,
story of whether
fine,
the
but
story that he's shooting
let me-
blanks is legitimate or not, good luck finding any reliable
See,
data.
what does that have to do with politics of the day? You know, so it's
Oh,
it's
because
sort of
whether
direction.
Clinton is, I don't know. I mean, you're talking about, you know, uh, extramarital affairs and so on. And the funny thing is that Clinton has a story that he's impotent and that he couldn't even biologically be the father of his wife's daughter.
He
And
never
that
denied. He never denied that that semen was his on the dress. By the way,
no, but doesn't mean it's going to have
Fertile.
yeah, but that's the irrelevant part of the distinction. You know, the detail is he engaged in this behavior with an intern who was many levels below him in
Oh yeah.
power and authority, and that
But
was
when he said I never had sex with that woman, it may be that, you know, procreative sex is in fact outside of his capability.
See,
Anyhow,
I think this is the distraction.
it's one of those things where there are stories and rumors that have never been verified in any, you know, reliable way, but they're persistent stories. And the claim is that Chelsea resembles Hillary's boss when she was whatever she was in Arkansas. And it's the same thing about Frank Sinatra was the real father of.
Why is that important?
Oh, it's because how do you know what you claim to know? There's examples
On
of
this
how do you,
particular point, why do I care on that point?
because you were trolling this woman to find out how does she know what she claims to know?
Well, an easy thing to verify is I read everything. That was her statement. I read everything. I don't just stick with Fox News.
Yeah, and you didn't believe that.
Well, I was showing her a lot of other sources and she wasn't going to read them.
So she makes an assertion, and you're skeptical of the assertion, and you're presenting evidence to falsify her assertion.
That's the null hypothesis you're talking about.
And she doesn't adhere to the protocols of the scientific method, so she dismisses your use of the protocols and simply sticks to her dogma, her beliefs, without evidence 101.
You know what else I noticed?
What?
When I tried to respond to her points, she would continuously and repetitively interrupt me. She wouldn't let me make my statements.
Yeah.
If one actually had points that were valid, why wouldn't one engage on the merits of the point? Why would one need to speak over someone else?
The one thing you didn't say to her, which wouldn't have worked, but I would have done it anyway. Madam, how did you falsify the null hypothesis? And then she would go,
I would not have tried that, Barry. I would not have tried that.
The thing is
That did not cross my mind.
Is that she wouldn't know what that even means. The fact that she would say,
well, I had to ask you what that meant the first time you said it.
But the point is that if you really are trying to use the scientific method, the notion of conscientiously attempting to falsify the null hypothesis is an important element of the scientific method. If you don't even know what it means, then you can't be conversant with the scientific method, let alone attempting to be using it.
I was trying to verify every one of her points.
Yeah. But
and
you didn't answer
that that's a generosity when engaging with someone new, right? Yeah. It's valid. It's not appropriate to just dismiss out of hand.
But the point of asking the question is it introduces into the discussion the concept of adhering to the scientific method, which is the name of something that you may be unfamiliar with, especially if you're not using it.
Well,
and if you are claiming
practice, I was testing that, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
what I was doing in practice.
Yeah. Okay. But I think there is a value, at least in some cases, of expressly saying, how'd you falsify the null hypothesis? And by the way, the closest thing that you can find that in the New Testament is when Pontius Pilate says, I'm told, he says to Jesus, I'm told that you're the king of the Jews. And Jesus responds, that's your working hypothesis. He says, well, that's what you're saying. He says, that's what you say. Now, which in modern is, that's your working hypothesis, followed by unspoken, how'd you falsify the null hypothesis? That's the beginning in literature of using the protocols of the scientific method. I think that's very interesting that that's your working hypothesis. It's right there in the New Testament in a famous passage. That's what you say.
Not too long ago, Barry said that it's more important to vote for the values and then let the expert do the job, right?
Yeah.
So my wonder question is that, Sam, you talked to her for 2 hours. Did you ask her what her value are?
Not so explicitly, but I did test specific ones. Okay. I did test whether or not pussy grabbing, lying, 91 counts of felonies, falsely stating financial records, being on trial in 7 different cases. I did go after any of that, and all of it was rejected. All of it was, oh, that's, people just, trying to frame him or trying
So
to.
you don't have her values then?
I was trying to get them. I was trying to get them through that set of questions.
So instead of straight ask question, what's important to you in the politician? What's the values
Yes,
are?
I did. I said, is honesty important? Is it important?
You asked her what's not.
Yeah.
Winning is important. Getting money from your stupid contributors is important.
Yeah. And by the way, there were other indications of values. Like she was talking about being in New York when we talked about, the trial in New York. And she said, oh, well, I got off a subway station in New York and I could see no whites. They were all, etc.
Puerto Ricans, right.
So there was some strong undertones.
Did you ask her how much money did you give him?
No, I did not.
She might not answer that but she probably would say, yes, I have donated to his campaigns or his whatever. But she might say, well, yeah, I gave him $1,000, or she might say something like that.
I didn't ask that.
That would have been worth asking, even though it might be, private information.
So this is what I mean. The chess player meet the wall, right? So this is how the real test is. So the next question I have for you is that, what did you learn from this conversation so that the next time you met someone like this, how would you have a different conversation?
Would you in the future ask any of the alternate questions into how did you falsify the null hypothesis?
Yes.
Or how much money did you?
I wouldn't avoid any of the questions that I already did ask, but you guys are providing a number of good questions that I also could ask. And keep in mind, the conversation already did go for 2 hours. And
I know.
I didn't recount every single
and how did Gail feel about sitting on the sidelines during this?
Well, she and her date, okay, were initially trying to stay out of it, okay, but I did ask the guy. He was also a Trump supporter, and Gail is also very much not a Trump supporter. But she certainly picked up on, some of her comments about, how Trump treated women and about how all these rape trials are all just, false, even though I said 19, 21 of them, they're all fake, and all these. So anyway, eventually Gail got drawn into the conversation because she couldn't even, let some of her statements just go. So anyway, it was a good thing that the Niners won last night. Otherwise, last night would have been a much worse evening. But I actually enjoyed that conversation. I actually did want to lean into that conversation and really give this a chance. Yeah. And I probably will again. I've been looking for opportunity. And like I said, she's the second strong Trump reporter that I've actually had this kind of conversation with. There was one time before, way back before Trump was elected the first time. And that person, again, cited Breitbart,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
unquestionably. And in fact, that person admitted that his kids were embarrassed to be known as his kids because of his support for Trump.
My parents supported Nixon back in 1960.
I have to be on the record saying I did not vote for Nixon.
Again, you are not focusing on they are voting for their values, Nixon's value, not Nixon's person.
My parents were also in Iowa back then, and those were Republican states. And
No,
they voted for
today-
Nixon, I think, in 72.
I mean, yes, we could say we would like to have a system where we vote for values or, better systemic thinking, but that's not what we have today. We vote for people, and people
Let me
do
let me
lie.
turn this around. We have a few minutes left. Let's turn it around. What are the values of Biden, and what are the values of Trump? Do you know?
You want to start this at 18 seconds before the top of the hour?
Okay, I want looking for a short answer. Yes, no, one,
Okay.
2, 3.
Trump doesn't
Next
care
week.
about anybody else other than himself. At least Biden appears to. Okay.
Biden is looking out for the welfare of the country,
Yes.
looking out for his own personal welfare,
Yes.
fundamentally.
Okay, so see the short answer right there.
That's right.
That's Barry's version. What's your version?
I already answered my short.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Right.
got it.
Trump
Thank you.
has no trouble lying to anyone and doesn't regard the truth as important at all. He basically just regards power as the ultimate end game, and he'll
He
say,
doesn't believe in sin or doesn't believe that he's sinned.
yeah.
All right. Time's up.
Anyway, look,
to answer the question.
I much enjoyed today's conversation. Okay. I appreciate you guys both letting me ask the questions and provide my feelings around yesterday's conversation. So I really appreciate this. This is what I come here on Sundays for.
Oh, we succeeded.
At least
More
in
or
that
less.
respect.
Again, when we have a clearer goal, we go achieve it. When you don't have a clearer goal, you go wonders, and sometimes wonders are fun,
That's
but
right.
they could be frustrating.
That's right. That's why
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify it today. And yesterday I was unable to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So about the next future, you're going to get off the Saturday thing. What's the deal with that? So I want to be clear about what's going on.
I'll be back on the 24th. Whatever you guys want to do between now and the 24th is completely up to you guys.
Of February,
Yes.
because the 24th of January is next Wednesday.
That's correct. Now,
So what you want to do? So
I'm
basically, there'll be no hosting and all that stuff. So we can take a break from all
No,
this.
I can if you want to, but I'm willing to start them and then just leave. Okay.
You might want to make one of us co-host or host or
Okay.
something.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Actually,
Okay?
actually,
I'll start it. I'll make one of you host and then I'll leave. Okay. And
or
I'll,
if you, or if you
Host
give
key.
us, if you give us the host, what's the key, the 6-digit
host
host key?
I'll see if
Then
I
we
know
can
how to
let-
do that.
You don't even need to start it at all.
Okay, let me see if I know how to do that, or you guys tell me how to do that. Okay.
So you have to log into the Zoom website, and then
Let's still get that done right now.
and then there's a thing about something called claim host. It's a 6-digit key, which every session has a 6-digit key. So the Saturday barn raising, which is a recurring Saturday thing, has a 6-digit host key. If you disclose it to either of us, then we can use it to claim host if you're not
Okay, I'm
around.
logging in right now.
Go to the Saturday barn raising example of the
Hang on. I'm trying to find my sessions here. So I'm in. Where do I find my scheduled set of meetings here?
You want to hold the host key on the public, so you want to send it separately, because if it's somebody putting the recording, will be.
But send it to us privately. Don't send it
I'll
to
send it to you guys on that Facebook group for CSG. But I'm trying to
No,
find.
basically,
okay,
no
here we go.
Facebook group. Send it to Barry private.
send it to us
messages.
I'll
privately.
send it to
'cause
you
if
guys privately. I'll send it to you guys.
Yeah,
privately.
Yeah,
Don't-
'cause
no,
otherwise
the
anybody
group.
who sees this will know you're hosting. You'll have to change it.
Anyway, since you said I wanted to do it right now, I'm trying to find it right now. Where do I find my scheduled meetings here? I can find my recordings, but where are my meetings?
The one called Saturday barn
Personal
raising.
room, meeting templates, polls, previous.
You have a regularly scheduled one called Saturday barn raising. And it has a host key.
I'm not seeing it.
Well, you don't have to do it now.
Yeah, send me the help page that has it, then I'll try and follow it.
Sam knows where to find it.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of previous meetings, but I'm not seeing any recurring. I don't know. I think I made this recurring, but
Well, it has to be because it has an ID. It has an
it
ID.
had a meeting ID. Yes, that is correct.
Right, it has an ID and it has a passcode, and it's all where you gave it the ID and the passcode. That's the same place where it has a host key.
Anyway, send me the
Google
Zoom.
host Zoom host key.
Okay. All right. Anyway, if you find it, send it to me. I'll try and follow those instructions.
All righty.
Okay.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
both.
Okay,
My appreciation for this conversation. Okay. And the two of you.
sounds good. Thank you. Bye.